So I wanted to talk to you for a few minutes about vision and about what vision looks like, because the great thing is if you don't feel like you are adequate in casting vision, there are some things that you can learn to be better at that. And isn't that great? That, it's not, there's some things you just can't, like if someone said, Elizabeth, I know that you cannot tap dance, but I can teach you how. That's not really true, because you're not going to ever teach me how to tap dance, because I can't tap dance. I don't even care if you're the best tap dance teacher in the world. There are just some things I'm not going to be able to learn to do. But you know what? Vision and casting vision for your people and for other people in your life, you can learn to do this. And so we're going to talk about that and why it's so important. Vision, Proverbs 29:18, I think you've all probably heard this a jillion times in your life. It says, where there is no vision, the people perish. We all know that, right? But have you ever turned that around? Where there is vision, the people flourish. Do your people need to flourish? Do you need to flourish? This is all about refreshing and renewing. And, where are you in that part of your journey in your life? Where's your vision? I don't know. Some of you may just have it right ahead of you and clipping right along. Some of you may feel like you kind of lost your way. Life happens. Isn't that exciting? Doesn't matter who you are. It just happens. And so let's talk why it's important for us to have vision. First of all, the second every one of you got in Premier, and the second every one of your people get in Premier, they all of a sudden have an adversary. And I think you guys realize that, but I don't know if you sometimes really grasp it. The second you signed up to be in Premier, a company that wants to honor God, a company that wants to serve people, leadership that want to do that, you know what? Satan went, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to steal, and I am going to destroy you. That's exactly what you signed up for. You know what? And I have to tell you, sometimes I think we cave in. Yeah, it's too hard. Yeah, I don't make enough money to put up with these people. We've all said that. We've all got people, we've all been given an abundance of heavenly sandpaper in our downlines, And I want to know that none of y'all are my heavenly sandpaper. I want you to all feel really good about that, okay? I don't want you to be sitting there, am I it? Am I the one? None of y'all are the one, okay? None of y'all are. You're all a joy, absolutely a joy to me and to Randy. But your adversary wants to kill, steal, and destroy you and your people. And you know what? You've got to stand strong. And you've got to have vision that's going to help you stand strong, because you're not going to be able to do it just because you're a great person or just because you've got a good personality. You're going to have more than to be able to withstand some of the stuff that we're going to go through. And Premier is no different than any other company except for the fact that it was built on biblical principles. So it's going to be attacked. You know what? And we are the gatekeepers, guys. We, the senior leaders, are the gatekeepers of this company. And we're the ones that need to stand in the gap when our jewelers and our other people are really going through tough times. So, he's going to try, and we've got to have a plan of action against him. Why do we need vision? I wrote down some reasons I need vision. One, it gives me purpose, and it gives me a passion for my task. If I don't know where I'm going, I have no vision for that. It's like someone came over the other day. They said, Elizabeth, I love the way you decorate. I wish you could help me decorate my house. I said, well, what style are you? And she said, well, I like really contemporary. I go, I'm not your girl. I said, I have no vision for that. I just have you say decorate something contemporary, and my head just has a big old blank screen on it. I don't do that. I don't have passion or vision. I appreciate it, but I'm not the girl for that. And I think we've got to realize we have got to have a vision, and we've got to have passion for what we're doing as leaders. There's got to be more to this that pushes you than I'm going to get a commission check. Okay, there's got to be more. Or you know what? At some point, you're just not going to be very motivated. I can remember when we got in Premier, we met with Andy, and he said, "Okay, well, tell me what your goals, what are your dreams, what are your desires for this business?" Well, you know what we said. God, we got so much debt. We got to pay this stuff back. We got to pay it back. We got to make money. Randy's like, I got to make $1 million this year, because Randy had a great plan. See, if we made $1 million our first year in Premier, then we could pay back our debt, and then we could have some to tithe on, and, then just kind of live normal. But, isn't that funny that probably wasn't a very good plan? Obviously it wasn't, because that's not what happened. And Andy looked at Randy and he said, lad, I'm going to tell you something. If you're looking for something where you're going to make $1 million your first year, you better get out and you better get into something else. He said, you're going to be in a company that's going to build lives. And he said, you're going to make money and you're going to pay back that debt. But he said, you're going to build lives. And that's what you better focus on, because someday you don't need the money. But the lives, that's what's going to take you through. And you know what? He is right. He is right. I thought at that moment he was smoking something. Because, we had such a big debt in our life. I thought, this guy doesn't get it. He's independently wealthy. He doesn't understand what it means to owe money. God love him. He's so sweet. But he was so right. There's got to be more to push you on that's going to give you some passion than just making money. And making money is good, because we all have to pay our bills, unfortunately. Isn't that sad? I just wish we needed Monopoly money. Wouldn't it be so much more fun? I just like that. Diva dollars, yeah, we can print those. Yeah, we'd have total control if it's Diva dollars, yeah. We also need vision, though, because it motivates us and it inspires us. And you know what? It's contagious. Are you ever around someone who's contagious? Their enthusiasm is contagious. You seek to be around them because they're excited. And then don't you have some other people that if you admitted it, you kind of run from them. You kind of see them going, and they're kind of those people that just kind of suck the life out of you. We need to be the leaders that people run to, not run from. And we have to be very, very careful about that, and we have to watch that. Vision also gives you direction to let you know where you're going. If you don't know where you're going, you're not going to know if you ever got there, or if you're even close to getting there. And then finally, vision produces discipline and determination. Vision helps you get through the dips in life. The heartaches, the illness, the kids, everything that comes that's in the form of a dip or a hardship. Vision is what helps you push through that. And you know what I'm discovering the longer that I'm in Premier and dealing with lots of people is, where most people are in life is they ride that wave and then they hit that dip. And you know what? They don't know how to maneuver through that dip. And so you know what they do? They jump ship and they do something else. And you know what? They get in there and it's cruising along, and then they hit that dip again. And they didn't learn the first time how to maneuver and go on and get out of it and go up. And so you know what they do? They jump and they do something else. And you know what their life is full of? Their life is full of dips. That's discouraging. That's depressing. And see, as leaders, we need to be the people that not only ourselves learn how to push through the dips of life, but also so that we can encourage our people how to do the same thing. And you know what? I don't see a lot of leaders doing that. I see a lot of leaders that are caught in the dip, and they're just bailing. And they're not working on how to push through that dip themselves to be able to get back to victory. There is always going to be victory, but there is always going to be a dip first. Always. There's never going to be, we're never going to jump from mountaintop to mountaintop to mountaintop. That would be awesome. I mean, I would love that. I would love to be the person that got to experiment with that one. But that's just not how it goes. And we've got to be realistic enough to recognize it in our own lives. And then we've got to be responsible enough to help our people move through that and talk them through that. Okay, how are you going to give them vision? And I'm going to tell you how I learned to give vision. I totally learned it from Andy Horner. And the reason I learned it from him is because this is exactly what he did to us. And it worked for us, so I think it probably will work for you. Okay? So I think we'll just leave it with that. How do you do vision? First thing is you've got to paint a picture and put them in it. Okay? Paint a picture and put them in it. And this is exactly what Andy did. Right after we got in Premier. Now, we got in Premier when Premier was 90 days old. They had just had, it was the day after their very first rally. And their first rally had about 100 people there. We were number 232, and they started with 101, okay? So that's kind of how quick we got in. And we're standing in a room, and it was an OP. And there were about 25 people in the room. And Andy put his arm around us. And remember, we're just 90 days old in Premier. And he goes, you know what? Someday, this room is going to be your first levels. We're going, you're right. You are so funny. You know, we're sitting there looking at 25 people like going, there is no way we would ever have 25 people in our first level. This guy is, does this guy not realize our predicament? You know what? It wasn't long, and we had 25 people in our first level. Well, then we kind of rolled along a little bit, and we were at we did a lot of regional rallies back then. We rallied all the time. I mean, I'm going to tell you, about every 90 days, we were having some kind of a rally, okay? So we were at this rally, and there were about 200 people there, and he said, you know what, guys? He said, look at this room. He said, someday you are going to have a room full of people just like this, and they're all going to be leaders in your downline. Oh, my gosh. Are you kidding me? You know, that was the dumbest thing. It's like 200 people. I think we had, by that time, I think we had 12 designers. You know, it's like, Andy, lad, you know, you were smoking some shamrocks or something. I don't know what he's doing. You know, and you know what? He was right. There came a point where we had 200 plus leaders in our 10-10-10. You know, and then I'll never forget, we went to a rally. It was our national rally. And there were several thousand people there at that rally. It was huge. I mean, we sat there in amazement just going, look how many people are in Premier. This is awesome. And he said, you know what, guys? Someday, you're going to have a room like this. This is going to be your downline. Your downline. We're like, there's no way. Yeah, there is a way. That's how you paint a picture and you put somebody in it. It's exactly what Andy did to us. Do you do that? Do you walk up to people at your training? Do you put your arm around them, just whisper in their ear and just go, you know what? This is going to be your downline. Do you pass them a note at training? I'm so proud of you. You know, this whole row of people right here, those are going to be all your designers. You watch. Do you ever do that? You ought to. Painting a picture and putting your people in it. The next thing you do is you got to ask them, what are their dreams? You know, I get so tickled at people. I'll say, can I tell you who you're kind of focused on, who you're working with? Well, and they'll name like 12 people. I'll go, wow, you're able to multitask focus. I can't really do that. But you know, you got to find out what are their dreams. And then you've got to do two things. You've got to, one, not push your dream on them. You know, we all know parents like that. You know, they call them stage moms. You know, the parent that never made it in cheerleading or sports, and so they were bound to determine their son or their daughter was going to do far better than they ever did. You know, that kind of thing. We can't be that kind of a premier leader, okay? We got to find out what their dream is, even though in our head their dream may be way smaller than we know that they're capable of doing, okay? We got to seize what they say and run with that, because we know if they're successful on small levels, they're going to gain confidence and get better and better at what they're doing. So you've got to make sure that you listen to what they want and you don't try to overextend it, okay? And then you've got to keep them focused on where they're going, not where they are. And that's huge. And Andy used to do this to us all the time. You know, it took us 10.5 years to pay back that debt. 10.5 years is a long time. Okay, it's a long time. But you know what? Every time Andy saw us, or every time he wrote us a note, you know, and I've got files of notes that he has written us over the years. Do you know what he always did? He never focused on our debt, ever. He never mentioned it. He'd go, hey, it was so great to see you at blah, blah, blah. I am so proud of you. You are getting so close to paying that debt off. Yeah, right. You know, we only had 900,000 more, you know, instead of whatever. But he always put us where we were going instead of where we were currently. And that's a huge thing in doing that with your people. You know, are you doing that? You know, the third thing you got to do is tell them stories of success. People love stories. They will remember stories longer than they will remember 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. I mean, all the time. For example, when we lived in Houston, I think this was Houston, I had a group of ladies that all had shows for me, and they all lived in a cul-de-sac. And so basically, I did a show, I got 5 bookings, and all of these shows booked within 2 weeks of each other. You know, and you all know what that kind of looks like. Well, the first show I go to, and this lady comes in, and she is so grumpy. She's got her arms crossed, and she's like this. She goes, look, I'm only here because she's my neighbor. I don't like jewelry, and I'm not buying any jewelry. And I'm kind of like, you know, in my head, I'm thinking, why did you even come? But I thought, okay. I said, what's the positive? What's the positive? What's the positive? I said, oh, you are such a nice friend. I said, you don't have to buy anything. Just come on in, have some fun. She buys $75. She leaves. Thinking, that's weird. 2 weeks, here's the next show. Same scenario, Grumpy comes in, you know, the same spill, why she's there, you know, blah, blah, blah. I say the same thing to her. She buys $50, $75. She leaves. Third time, same grumpy person, same story, same sits there, stares at me the whole time, looks like she's going to kill my dog, my cat, my mom, everybody, you know, buys jewelry, leaves. Now, you would think I would have been smart by now, okay, but I wasn't. The fourth time, enters Grumpy. And I just look at her and I go, look, what are you doing? Why are you making yourself so miserable? You don't have to come to all these shows. You told me you don't even like jewelry, and you have bought jewelry every single time. You know, if you really want some jewelry, why don't you just get your friends together and I will come over to your house and I'll win you some jewelry. She goes, okay, I'd love to. I was looking for Ashton Kutcher. I thought I was being punked or something. I was like, what? And I said, what? She goes, I was just waiting for you to ask me. She said, I thought if you wanted me to have a show, you'd ask me. I said, well, I thought if you wanted to have a show, you'd ask me. And that changed my whole career. When I finally realized I never wanted a lady to ever leave my house thinking she didn't like me. I wanted everyone to be asked personally. Because even if they said no, I wanted them to drive off going, I said no to her, but she liked me. Now, you know what? I just told you a story. But I taught you how to ask every hostess to have a show. Do you see the power in telling stories to people? Stories of success. You will never forget that story. But if I had tried to stand up here, pardon? Absolutely, that really happened. I don't tell a story. Listen, I wish I could tell you everything that's happened to me is made up, but it is true. And that is what's crazy about it, okay? But you know, I could have sat here and go, we're going to do a little talk, and we're going to talk about how to rebook your hostesses, and we're going to talk about what to say, 1, 2, 3, ABC. You would have taken great notes, and you would have walked out of here, and you might have done it or not. but because I told you the story of how it changed my life in my business about asking everyone, you'll always remember that. Are you doing that with your people? Are you telling stories? Are you telling stories of success for them? Maybe you've got a little school teacher and she wants to get out of teaching. Instead of telling her, okay, now talk to this many people and show the marketing plan this many times and book this many shows, what if you just told her the story of someone you know in Premier, or maybe you yourself, of a teacher that wanted to get out of that and now they're in Premier? Why don't you tell her a story of success? That motivates. Guys, I'm going to tell you, you motivate people through their heart, not their head. And as leaders, we spend a lot of time trying to motivate heads with ABC 1, 2, 3, and you would get a lot farther if you would make sure that you would always put in there motivation through the heart. That's testimonies. That's telling stories. That's having Mary come up and she paid off, a bill that was looming over them. And she shares that with people. It's those kind of things that motivate, inspire people and want to move over, to go do stuff. Why do those chicken soup books do so well? It's because they were stories of encouragement, of victory, of success, of people that overcame what people thought wasn't even possible to overcome. That's why they've sold millions upon millions of those books. Guys, that's what you do as a leader. That's how you lead people. And you've got to really make sure you grasp that. So you're going to tell them stories of success. And then the last thing is constantly remind them of their dream. And how do you do that? Well, of course, you do it with your mouth. You can also do it through send them a note. You can do it through a text. You can do it through an email. You can use all forms of communication with them. But keep them focused on that. And constantly remind them. Maybe I have a girl and she's really working hard at some specific goals. And she's texted me the other day. She's young, and she texted me the other day, and she said, "You're not going to believe this. I just had a show, and it was blah, 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 and I just paid the mortgage again for like the 5th month in a row. I'm so excited." I said, "Girl, you cannot believe how proud I am of you. You are going to be able to do this every single month. Your husband is going to flip out. This is awesome." That's how you keep communicating their dream to them. Okay? That's what a vision caster does. But see, I think a lot of times leaders just in their head say, "Awesome, yay." But they never speak it out to them. Guys, you know what? When someone hears something, that song or that little rhyme, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me," that is a lie. I would rather you hit me with a stick or a stone than say something unkind to me. Because you know what? If you say something unkind to me, I'm going to remember that. I'll forget that you hit me with a stick, but I'm not going to. And let me give you an example. When I was a senior in high school, this is a true story, okay? If I'm going to tell you a story that's not true, I will say, this is a lie that I'm fixing to tell you, okay? But this is true. I'm a senior in high school, and we're writing our English paper. And both my parents were teachers. So my dad taught college, and my mom taught 5th grade. So anything I ever turned in filtered through 4 sets of eyes. So I'm just going to tell you, nothing ever got turned in that my parents hadn't triple and quadruple graded, okay, themselves. And so I turned this paper in. It's good paper. I don't know if it's A+ worthy, but it's a good paper. Well, she pulls me out in the hall, and she shuts the classroom door, and she tosses that paper at me, and it has a giant red F. And she said, "This is the worst paper in all my years of teaching that I have ever received." And she said, "You're going to do this over, and I'm going to tell you something, young lady. You better not ever plan on having a career where you're going to teach, where you're going to speak, or you're going to do anything that has to do with people, because you will miserably fail. Yeah, 12th grade. I still remember that. When I tell you that story, I still feel the hallway. And I still feel the wind of that paper hitting my hands with that giant F. I mean, I feel it. That's how long that has stuck with me. But you know what? My mom and my dad believed in me. They said, not one English teacher, Elizabeth, is going to determine your destiny. And that's not right. And you're not going to believe that. And fortunately, I'm Pollyanna enough that I can kind of and jump back up, which is good. Now, I will say this, my mother, God love her, my mother, every year, because my mom taught in the same school district, that this English teacher did. And my mom every year, until she died, made sure that this lady knew exactly what I did for a living and what my commission check was every month. And I got to tell you, Dolly, I loved it that Mom did that, I never ever said, Mom, don't do that. I was like, go, Mom. She goes, honey, I'm just sorry, but I'm just telling her. I go, do it. I said, let me show you my check one more time just so you can have a good figure in your head. That's true. That really is true. I was happy for Mom to say that, okay, on that. But you know what? Words are so important. Words are so important. Lack of words are also destroying. Someone excited about something and there's no words, that can hurt just as bad as words can. And we have to be very careful as leaders. We joke a lot about turn your filter on. You've all got people that you deal with in your upline, downline, or all around line that you go, okay, turn your filter on before you get there. You know what? We need to make sure that we have a good filter as a leader, as what we say and what we don't say, what our eyes do, what our body language does. I'm going to be honest with you. It is very comfortable for me to sit like this. It is very comfortable. And I don't mean anything. It's just comfortable. It's probably because when I was pregnant, I'd do this and, I'd rest on my stomach and it just felt great, And I still have stomach, so it still feels great, to do that. But you know what? I've learned that this is not emotion. Like if you were up here speaking and I was sitting like this, I would just die if you thought, oh my gosh, Elizabeth must be mad at me because look how she's sitting. So I have to purposefully, when I am sitting in a training, I have to say to myself, don't cross your arms, stay focused, look pleasant. Like I have to catch myself going, am I looking pleasant right now? Because that speaks volumes to people. And see, whether you believe it or not, your people so respect you. And you may not feel like that, but I'm going to tell you, they do. And so when you are in a room and they are doing whatever, they're looking at you for their approval, just like a little t-ball player turns around and looks at mom and dad before they hit the ball off the tee. They want approval. And that's how your premier family is with you. They want your approval. And if that comes hard for you, you have got to fix that. God, you have got to get it right. Because, I've had people come to me before and go, I think so-and-so doesn't like me. I go, really? Why do you think that? Well, because every time I say something, she just stares at me. I say, well, she is deaf. She cannot hear you. And in my head, I go, I know that's a lie. I go, but I'll think about, I know a lot of leaders in Premier, and so, when they'll tell me a story, I know a lot of the people they're talking about. And in my head, I'll go, you know what? She is the sweetest, nicest person. And I'm going to tell you while you were talking, she was excited. She just was focused on what you were saying. And when you're focused, sometimes you don't look angry or pleasant. You just look. I don't know. And guys, it's just so important that we're really aware of that. Really, really aware of that on that. Okay, now, so we've kind of gotten through that. Everybody have any questions about vision casting or why it's important? I hope you don't have a question on why it's important. That would be embarrassing. On how to do it, that's okay. But why we need it, that was pretty good. Okay, now, another thing that's important as a leader is for you to not only learn and develop good vision casting skills for your people and also have good vision for you, but also, it's so funny now y'all are all doing this to me. You're all like encouraging me. I like that. I do like that. But don't be weird about it. Like the Joker, It's like that's creepy stuff. Don't be a creepy encourager, okay? That's the next point. That's not the next point. Okay. Next thing is you've got to, after you accomplish that, you've got to learn how to evaluate your business. And Randy and I spend hours upon hours every single week talking to people about their business. And most of the time, the people we're talking to are leaders. And if you're not evaluating your business, you are going to get stuck in a rut. And you know what? You are going to wake up in 6 months or a year and go, oh my, how did I get so far from where I intended to be? And it's because you weren't evaluating quickly. And I'm going to tell you, for Randy and myself, we think every 90 days is imperative that you evaluate your business. And you know what? I don't know about you guys, but 90 days goes by that fast. I can remember in high school, I'd go, gosh, when's it going to be Friday? It just seemed like a week was forever. And now I wake up on Monday and all of a sudden I go, oh my gosh, where did Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday go? It's just so fast. And that's why I'm going to tell you a simple way to keep up with this. And basically it's in your calendar, on your phone, whatever system you use for keeping a calendar, just write the word evaluate. Okay, and then that way you can stay on top of that. So you don't create bad habits, you don't stay too long where you shouldn't be, or you don't stay too short where you should stay longer. And let me give you some questions to ask yourself. Now, I hope that you'll take this and apply it, but then I hope you're going to take this and you're going to train this to your leaders. This really is designed to refresh and renew you, to go out and teach this to your people. You should leave this weekend and not ever have to say, well, what should I teach my leaders? You ought to have plenty to keep you pretty busy for a couple of years with information, okay? But you know what? I can't tell you how many leaders we talk to and they'll call, what should I have I have leadership on Friday. What should I teach them? What should you teach them? What did you just learn when we were together? Well, I was going to let you teach them that. No. You've got to transfer the information down. Okay, you've got to make sure you're doing that. So, first question is, where do I want to go? Okay, I don't know. You better know, and there's a lot of people that don't know really what they're doing. Next question, what do I need to do to get there? Third question, am I doing it? Why or why not? Now, I think most of y'all probably can answer 1 and 2. But I think question 3 is where you've got to really be honest with yourself. Am I doing it? Why or why not? We talked to a senior leader this week. Must have been yesterday, because this is the week. And she said, man, my business is going backwards. Randy said, well, are you showing the marketing plan? She goes, not really that much. He said, that's why it's going backwards. Guys, you got to lead the way. You can't, Randy and I were talking about this morning getting ready. I think what a lot of leaders do is they get their group up to 75 or 100 people, and then they rely on those people to do everything. As soon as you get 75 or 100 people, you know what you better be doing? Getting 75 to 100 more people. I mean, that's how you grow a business. You don't just rest back and go, whoo, I got it. And no, you still get out there and you still do what you did when you got in this business. And I hear all the time, you don't know, but my downline, my downline's just so big. I just spend all my time just, working with my people. I'm like, really? Working with your people? Really? I don't think they're working with their people. I think they're maintaining their people. Maintained people, guess what they do? They're like a stalled bicycle on a hill. They get to here, and you can maintain them here, and then you know what happens? They just go back, and then do you know where they are? They're in the dip. And do you know what they do? Quit. They become those zeros that you see on your report. Y'all have any of those? Numbers? Yeah. That's what happens, is they have not ever gotten past here, and then you've maintained, and so they've maintained because they do what you do. You ought to be out there doing those shows and at training, not bragging on your show, but being able to say, you know what? In my show last week, I got to tell you what happened. That's all you got to do, because it keeps them going, wow, she does shows? You've got to make sure that you're doing that, or you're maintaining. Guys, you're going to all go backwards. You've probably experienced going backwards recently, in the last 2 years. Maybe in the last 4 months you've experienced going backwards. There is a remedy. There's a remedy to going backwards. Do you know what it is? You do what you know to do. That's how you go forward. And they will follow suit. The ones that aren't going to follow, you know what? They're not going to follow. But you know what? You'll have a handful that will. You can build a business with a handful quicker than you can build a business with 100 people. And you've got to get that principle. I'm throwing this in. This is free, okay? You don't look at how many people are in your downline to see if you're healthy. You look at your active number month to month. That's your number. Don't look at that other number. That other number is depressing, okay? It's the active number that you're watching. And that's where you got to focus, okay? So third question was, am I doing it? Why or why not? And this to me is an important time for me to talk to you about taking your thoughts captive, because I think this is where a lot of our leaders are. You have bought into kill, steal, and destroy, because that's what the devil wants to do. The devil is not going to come out after you guys and go, you know what, Sheila, I think you should just go to a big old keg party and just get plastered, Sheila. You're going to go, I'm not doing that. Okay, you dealt with that years ago. Not that you ever did it at all. Okay, I'm just saying. Okay, Kathy did. But you didn't. But you know what I'm saying? A lot of those things that trip people up are things that when you were in high school, you made decisions in college of I'm going to do this or I'm not going to do it. That's not where he's going to trip you up. He's going to trip you up right here. And that's why the Bible talks so much about guarding your mind and guarding your heart and taking your thoughts captive. It is crucial that you learn to do that, because you get that thought, you know what? I can't do it. I just can't do it. Okay, when the Bible says take your thought captive, here's the thought, I can't do it. You think I can't do it, and you got to put it up against truth. Truth for me is God's Word. So I'm going to take that thought, I can't do it, and I'm going to put it up against truth. What does truth say? I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So I have a choice now. I've taken the thought captive, I've put it up against truth, and now I have a choice to accept truth and replace it, or to try to build a life on a lie. And I think that's what most people do, is they let the devil filtrate their thoughts, and then they try to build a life and they try to build a business based on a lie and not on the truth. You know, before we had any money at all, I always had Bible scriptures all over my house, written on index cards, taped everywhere. I mean, they were on the visor of my car, they were in my coin purse, they were in our silverware drawer, they were in my makeup drawer. I mean, everywhere. Everywhere, because I needed a constant reminder of what truth was so that I wouldn't get trapped into the lies. Now, I am able to afford stuff framed. And if you go in the bathrooms, that's why I have scripture in there, because you're sitting and you're captive. And you have to look at something, okay? So I figured it might as well be God's Word, because that's good stuff for you. But you know, if you're not taking your thoughts captive, you are trying to build a business and a life on something that is not true. You know, and if you build on, well, what if? Well, what if? Well, what if? What if is basically not trusting God. It's trusting yourself. You can't build on that. And so taking your thoughts captive is a huge part of what you do. And I'd encourage you, man, you get Bible verses that mean a lot to you, that empower you, that encourage you, that push you forward and make you go, hoo-ah! You know, and you put them everywhere. Everywhere. If you open my drawer where our cups are, there's a little verse hanging there. If you open my silverware drawer right now, there's a verse there. In my makeup drawer, there's a verse there. I have a scripture where in my wallet. I mean, I still do that because it's such a huge, important thing in keeping my mind focused on Him and not on the world. Guys, turn the radio on, turn the TV on, and you can just be all full of all kinds of junk in a matter of seconds. And that you can't lead if you're focused on that kind of stuff. And you've really got to work on that. Okay, and the next question is, and this is huge, what am I initiating? Are you initiating OPs? Are you initiating one-on-ones? Are you initiating things like another leadership training? Another downline fellowship? If you are initiating events, your business is going backwards. If you're initiating things that build your business is going to go forward. There's two things that build your business. Are you ready? Here's a secret. Everybody wants to know the secret. One is the telephone, picking it up and saying, hi, I'm excited. We have a new promotion going on. Just wanted to see what date you wanted for your show. Okay, the phone. That still is the main thing to move forward in your business. And the second thing to build your business is showing the marketing plan. I mean, that's it. And if you're looking right now, I mean, if I had you raise your hand, and I'm not, but if I said, how many of you show the marketing plan to either your prospects or your downline prospects at least 7 or 8 a week? Okay, if you're saying I show the marketing plan between me and my downline once a week, that means 4 times a month someone is hearing about Premier. That's why it's not matching up. Guys, it's not about numbers, except the thing is, numbers do measure where we're going. Okay, and you've got to ask yourself those questions. Then you've got to ask this, okay, after what am I initiating, you've got to ask yourself, am I lazy or am I focused? When I'm not focused, I'm lazy. And I don't like that, but I mean, that's true. I have to stay focused. And so for me, I'm a planner. And so I have to put stuff on my calendar for it to happen. Okay? And if I don't get it on my calendar, it's not happening. And I really do like house shoes and pajamas. And I know Andy says get dressed and drive around the block and go to work. But I can really work good in my pajamas. I'm really good at that. But I know that's what he says not to do, but I accomplish a ton of stuff inside my house, not outside. So, you've got to ask yourself, am I lazy or focused? What are you focused on? If you're not focused, you're probably being lazy. Or you've got other things that are occupying your time. And, and some of those things are good, different stages of lives. I mean, when I had little ones, I could only do X amount of things because I had little ones. When my kids got in junior high, I had a different time arrangement, but I still did what I could that was productive, and then I was mom. So, I mean, we're all in different phases of our life, but guys, you've got to be initiating stuff. If you are waiting for your downline to do it, you are going backwards. You can't do that. I have watched every single one of you soar in this business. And when you were soaring, I know what you were doing. You were showing the marketing plan. And I've watched every one of you through the years. And I think we're slacking on that. I really do as a group. And I think we need to, either be excited that we're not doing it and not grumble, or change it. Be excited. You're going to get to hear this tomorrow, but I'm going to point this out to you. But we were listening to Robert Jeffers, who's pastor of First Baptist Church Dallas, and he said, it's interesting that the Israelites for years, they wanted to be out of captivity. They prayed and they asked God over and over and over and over, please, please, please let us go to the Holy Land. Please, the Promised Land. Please, please, please. And you know what? He did. He got them out of slavery and captivity, and he started taking them to the Promised Land. And you know what they did? They grumbled and complained. They let the source of what they asked for and prayed for become what they grumbled about. Big. Are we praying for God? Give me this, give me that, do this, do that. And then all of a sudden, he starts opening doors, and then we start, I'm so busy. If another person calls me, I'm just going to throw up. We let the very source of what we asked for be what we grumble and complain about. Shame on us. Me included. I'm not standing here, I don't have the corner on that market either. Okay, next thing is, am I people-driven or am I an event planner? I think a lot of senior leaders are event planners. I really do. I think there's some senior leaders that they plan so many events, their people don't have time to do shows. Amen. I mean, what? Okay, if a girl gets in Premier and her husband says you can have 4 evenings a month to do Premier, and 3 of the 4 are trainings, she's going to do 1 show a month, okay? I mean, that just seems logical to me. So we need to make very sure as leaders, what are we putting out there to be on their calendar? Because I think a lot of times as a leader, and I've fallen into this too, it is so much easier for me to just plan a training and just check it off my list than to sit there and get on the phone and call my people and say, what's going on? I can show the marketing plan on Tuesday and on Thursday. Let's go, girl. Okay, that's harder. And so what we do is we lull ourselves into this thought of, I'm working my business because I have leaders coming over and we're doing a leadership training. I'm working my business because I've got a run the race thing or whatever they do, where they get on calls every week and somebody pumps them up, or Amazing Race. I'm working my business. I've got the Amazing Race going. Well, I'm just going to say the proof's in the pudding. And I'm going to tell you, we have done this for 28 years. We just had our 28th year anniversary. We have worked with 2 or 3 people and shown the marketing plan with them and shown the marketing plan with them and shown the marketing plan with them. And then we have worked with 2 or 3 people. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to put my business up against anybody else's. It's still moving forward, guys. I'm not going to say don't do Amazing Race and all that. I think that's a good filter on who wants to work. But if that is your goal of how you're going to build designers, I think you're going to fall short there. Because you know what people do? They perform for the prize. I want to be a business that is leader full, not contest driven. You've got to be so careful. There are so many people that will go for Disney. And you know what? You mark my words. As soon as it's over, there's fallout. Because they're working for a prize. They don't want to lead. They want a prize. They want a prize. I would rather pick 2 or 3 that want it because they love people and want to lead. They don't love the idea of it. They love the activity of it. Then to just keep putting things out there for people to win. I've got to do this. I've got to do this. I've got to do this. I've got to throw a carrot out. I've got to throw this out. Guys, you know what? You will make your people so ingrown eyeballed that they are just me, I, more. You think I'm going to do that just for a purse? You're crazy. I want a cruise. You know, you're like, I guess I've got to offer a cruise because if I lose 2 designers, I'm going backwards. Guys, that is crazy. It is crazy. You know, I had a girl call the other day. She goes, what do you give people when they make Builder? I said, I clap and cheer. They go, I know you clap and cheer, but like, what do you give them? I clap and cheer louder. I have never bought my people, ever. And I'm going to tell you, when you get into that, you can't keep up with that, guys. It'll break the bank. And you will be full of people with a title that don't want to work. And then you know what you're doing? A lot of stuff. I'm going to tell you, you need to pick that 2 or 3 that love people and love to invest in people's lives. And you build in those people. And you will see a group of leaders that'll develop, that'll work because they just love to work. They're the people that go, you know what? I'd do this even if I didn't get paid for it. Those are your people. Those are your people, guys. And I'm not going to be mad at you if you tell me you're running some contest and you're giving them thousands of dollars. I'm not going to judge. I'm just going to listen and assess. Okay? But I'm just going to tell you, you're going to be really disappointed. You're going to put out a lot of money where it just is just gone to the wind. And I don't think you want to do that. You know? So anyway, that wasn't even in my notes. God, that was good. Okay. And it was true. Next thing. Am I motivating and marketing? Am I motivating and marketing, or am I managing? Am I motivating and marketing, or am I managing? Nobody wants to work for a manager. Okay, and you've got to really look at your business and ask yourself, am I motivating and marketing? That's what builds a business, okay? Next one, and I already kind of touched on this, is how many times am I showing the marketing plan every week? And that would be with you personal and several of your people. Or that can include you go and do an OP at one of your downline's house and there's 5 guests there. That would count as 5 people for the week because you directly were involved in that, okay? So it's going to be through OPs, through one-on-ones, and then personal. That's going to be your number, guys. If you want to move forward on that. And then, last question. Am I sharing information or am I inspiring? You know, you've got to learn, like I said, motivate the heart, not the head. You know what? I look back when we first got in Premier, how excited we were with no catalog, no training manual, horrible jewelry, really horrible. You know, nothing. And that's when I built my business. And you know how I built it? It wasn't from head. It was from heart. You know, and that's what you got. I can remember when we moved to Houston, we would have a room of 150 people there, jewelers and guests, and at least 70. You remember this, Patty? 75 would at least be guests. The rest would be jewelers. And you know what we did? We had 2 testimonies and showed the marketing plan. Didn't do a bit of training. I'm just telling you guys, the heart's what keeps people going, not the head. Now I am excluding new jewelers from that statement. Absolutely, a brand new jeweler, yes, you have got to train them and teach them what to do, okay? But I'm talking about these people you have that have been in Premier 5, 8, 10, 12 years. Seriously, what are you going to teach them? Really? I mean, you know, don't you just sometimes feel like a broken record? Okay, I'm going to train on hostess coaching again. Well, I guess obviously we need to keep training. We need to keep training, you know, because they don't get it, because they don't do it. But, you know, I'm just saying, you've got to learn. There's got to be a method to your madness. You cannot keep doing the same thing and expecting all of a sudden you're going to have this sudden birth of energy and growth. I mean, it's just, guys, it's not going to happen. That's not logical. So you've got to change something. And all of us have some area that we can change. I mean, right now, you probably could go through your notes and go, you know what? I need to change 1, 2, 3. You know what? And it would make a huge difference in your business. It'd make a huge difference in your business. But I don't know if you're going to do it or not. I want you to, but I don't know. I hope you will. Okay, I don't know. Hey, John, can you do me a favor and can you get Randy, because I want him to show the conclusion of Jonathan and Charlotte on this, and what Vision did in this little couple. They're not really a couple like boyfriend and girlfriend, but you know, this little friendships lives, because it's amazing. I want you to watch how they walk out on stage. I want you to watch how when they interview him, how he talks. I tell you, vision and believing in somebody makes all the difference in the world. And guys, that's free. We can all do that, and we can do so much better than what we're doing. So I'm going to let y'all see Jonathan and Charlotte.